I was out on a regularity rally on Saturday, and after about an hour, the MG died on me.
There's nothing as bad as breaking down on a regularity rally.
And most likely it's going to be an ignition problem. So let's have a look what's wrong with this guy. There are not that many things that can go wrong. Either you have a fuel problem, or you have a real mechanical breakdown on the engine itself, or you have an ignition problem. Now I do suspect the ignition because that's where I had problems with before, and I will explain it to you what I've done to fix that in the past. So the first thing we're going to do is to make sure that we actually have fuel coming into the engine. And for that I'm just going to turn on the contact and let my electrical fuel pump up. We will have a look on the fuel pressure regulator and see if I actually have fuel pressure. If you don't have a fuel pressure regulator with a dial on, then you can of course take off the air filter and look inside the carburetor and see if it's wet, and we'll do that as well. So first of all, let us have a look on the pressure on the fuel line. I'm going to turn on the fuel pump by just turning on the contact, and we'll see what we get. And that's looking quite alright. That's the pressure I've set it for, so we should be good. We should be having fuel actually coming into the carburetor. But let's assume that we don't have a pressure meter on the regulator, so then we can check inside the carburetor if we have fuel coming in or not. So I'm going to look inside where the accelerator jets are, and then I'm going to pretend that I'm pushing the throttle really fast, wide open, and see if it's actually squirting fuel inside. And I can see the fuel squirting inside, so that's good. So this is not a fuel problem whatsoever. While I was rebuilding this car, I installed a brand new distributor. So that shouldn't be a problem, you would think. But still, we will check the ignition, and the way to do that is actually to remove the center cap here and then attach a spark plug to that, and then hold it against the frame somewhere, and then have someone to start the engine, and then you'll see if you have sparks or not. So let me show you that, and then we can then continue. Now, by the way, this is the lead which is coming from the ignition coil. I took the high tension lead which is coming from the ignition coil, placed it on a spark plug, and then locked my spark plug onto the framework of the engine, or the body of the engine, so I have a good ground. And now I'm going to try to start the engine and see if we have sparks. Now in my case, I know I will have sparks because I have found the problem on this engine already, and it went quite quickly. But I still want to show you on how I diagnosed it. So let's crank it up and see. And hopefully you could see the sparks on the spark plug. And as you can see, now I have sparks on the spark plug because I fixed the problem. Now initially I did not have sparks on my spark plug, meaning that my ignition system was at fault. Now let's have a look at what this ignition system is on this specific MGB GT. What I have done on this engine before is I moved the amplifier. This is the amplifier right here. This is a digital module that is getting input pulses from the pickup points in your distributor, and normally that module right here, which is below this aluminum part, sits on the side of your distributor, and it's very error prone because it's going to get hot because the distributor gets warm and then it fails. And I had this problem a couple of times, so I did a modification some time ago by moving the module out to the inner fender with kind of a heat sink on it, which is this aluminum panel. So I glued with special glue the module onto the aluminum, and then I bolted it down, and I just extended the pickup points to the distributor, and I'll show you that in a few more minutes. So now that's quite safe in terms of overheating. And here you have that distributor. This is a brand new one. And if I take the cap off, you can see inside the pickup coil So there's a coil here and two wires feeding to the side, and on this side you would normally find this module. This is an amplifier module, so the pulses that come out of this pickup coil indicating that you need to have ignition are then amplified by this module, and it will drive your ignition coil, and then you get the sparks back on the top of the rotor here, inside here on the top, and then inside you have a rotor that is going to distribute the sparks to the proper position of the spark plug at that moment in time, if your timing is set up right, of course. Now, I decided not to take off the complete ignition module right away because I modified it at the time. So it was so much easier, first of all, to check a very simple device, which is underneath the distributor cap, which is the rotor. Now, I did place a new rotor on the distributor when I installed it about 6 months ago, and this was the guy, that's the one that was faulty at the end. It was not my ignition module. Now, I could have started with the ignition module right away because that's what you would first suspect, because I had so many problems with these ignition modules in the past. First of all, there were El Cheapo aftermarket types mounted on the distributor, so I got rid of those. Then I got an original one still on the distributor that was suffering from heat, because that's a V8 under a very condensed engine bay. And then I actually moved it on the side wing, and now it's nice and cool and didn't cause any trouble until this weekend, of course, when I had an issue. But that was not the ignition system. That was this bloody rotor. I'm going to take the distributor cap off and check my rotor, and for that I need to unplug a few cables because of this hose here. I can't get my cap off otherwise. It's easier if I unplug it. Alright, so that should work. Undo the clips. Oh, maybe one more. It's this one right here. And I numbered them, so I always know where to put them back. So let's take that off and then have a look. And here is that rotor, and this was the one that I had in there before, the one that caused the problem. I placed back my very original Lucas rotor, and now this is working just fine. So let me put this back together, and I'm going to start it up so you guys can actually see it and hear it. I think this sounds pretty good. And that's even a cold start. This is the same distributor that I have in the MGB GT. It's brand new. So if I take the distributor cap off, you will find the rotor arm inside. Now that's the bad one. And what happened with this one is that from the top here where the high tension lead comes in, it was arcing through the insulation to the top of this metal axle here, and of course that is shorting out the high tension lead. No sparks on the spark plugs. So the lessons learned here is never buy aftermarket parts. They are always lower quality, and you never know where they are created or built. This one was brand new, believe me. I got 2 of those already that were bad, so I should have known that. So now I put back my original Lucas distributor or rotor arm. So let me show you on how I test these, because you might not believe me that this one is actually bad. What I'm using to test these rotor arms is nothing more than an electrical fence for horses. It develops around 8 kilovolts, which is more than enough to test this. So I'm going to put it in the mains, and then you will see that it's going to start generating a high voltage. I'm going to connect one of the clips to the top part here. The other line, which is coming from the ground on my tester here, I'm going to put it inside to a screwdriver, and you should see it arc inside, and it should never arc inside. So let us do that, and hopefully you can see it. If not, then I'll have to move it a little bit closer. And as you can see, we are running at 7.4 kilovolts, which is enough to test this. I'm going to move my screwdriver inside, and it should not be arcing whatsoever. If it does, then it means we have a short circuit. So let's see first of all if it's going to arc. You can see it works. So now let me move it inside. There you go. See? It's making a short. So this guy is bad. And this is my second one that actually broke some time ago. See? So that was the second bad one I had. Now this is a new one and not been used, and you can see nothing happens when I move around in it. And I do set up the sparks, as you can see. So it's not that I'm not sparking, and you can see nothing happens. So let's take it for a test spin and see how good it goes. I just wanted to show you this quick troubleshooting method that I applied on my MGB GT, because I was like frustrated like hell, and I thought really that it was the amplifier module that was having a problem again, because if you have so many problems with something, after a while you don't trust the vehicle anymore, no matter how good you fix it. But now I know that my amplifier module, the original Lucas version, mounted on the side, is working like a champ. That the issue is an aftermarket rotor arm. I learned my lesson. Bye-bye.